Afternoon, YouTubers. All right, so it's been a few days since I last did an update on the car. Today I'm going to talk to you about some oiling issues on the top end. If you were running a pre-1970 or 71 232 or a 199, you might, and it hasn't been a fresh rebuild, mind you, you might want to look into this problem. It's common on these cars, especially with the amount of sludge that the old oil's built up. Pennzoil was bad, Quaker State, stuff like that. They used to have a little bit of paraffin wax in them from what I've read. Don't quote me on it. I am not an oil genius. I just know how to fix things. So I'm going to get into it real quick, show you what I did. Right now, you're going to notice that I don't have a rocker shaft assembly or rocker arms on my car. That's because of this issue. They're actually at the machine shop right now getting my rocker shaft honed because I had a little metal, some galling on it, and getting it, the oil passage inside acid dipped and cleaned out, as well getting some bushings put into the rocker arm assembly and the tips dressed. I should be getting it back hopefully this weekend. You'll also know my carburetor's gone. I did finally found a place that actually had an original Holley 1931 OEM carburetor for this car that was a fresh built with all ethanol compatible components. Hopefully that should be in next week as well, and I can try to get this thing back on the road. All right, let's get into it. All right, so this is the pre-1971 99. 232s for pre-70, going back to when the 232 was built, are going to look remarkably similar. If you notice, the push rods, yes, they have a little corrosion on them. I actually took them out and scrubbed them. They're actually nice and clean. Are hollow or solid core. They do not have a hole in the tip of them. It's just a hardened steel rod all the way through. That is because on the pre-1970 199s AMCs, they actually got their oil fed from the number 3 head bolt. Notice it's nice and shiny too. I got in there and cleaned it out really good. Up to a passage right here. This is not just a casting. This is actually an 1/8 inch passage that runs all the way up into this pedestal right here, which feeds oil into your rocker shaft. Then the rockers actually will drip oil down onto your valve train and back down onto your push rods, which sends oil back down. So the problem with it is over 30, 40, 50 years of time, the oil will sludge up, and it'll sludge up inside of the head bolt area, and it'll sludge up in the passage here. So how do we get rid of this problem? Well, there's 2 different ways. Get it back on the road, keep driving it, and wait till your next rebuild. Quick way I like to do it, and I've done it before on an old 232. Weed eater string. Notice this is already kind of oily. I've been using it. This passage is right here, and it's almost the exact same diameter as the weed eater string. Get in there, rod that passage out really, really good. You're going to notice it's still got some nice black dyno on it. And then get in there with a can of carburetor cleaner with the straw and hose that son of a gun out. You're going to see all sorts of black schmoo get flown through there. In here, pull your it's your number 3 head bolt. This passage goes into here. It actually has pressurized oil coming from the camshaft, comes up to the cam alley, and comes right up into this head bolt, fills this area up, and there's a clearance around the base of this head bolt and lets it pressurize oil up here. Some people are going to say, well, you're going to wash your bearings out if you hose it out with, car parts or carburetor cleaner, something like that. Well, what I did to keep that from happening is, yes, I did hose the snot out of it. I got a lot of black goo out of it. I'm actually now getting oil up to the top, which I wasn't before. I could spin my oil pump up, which I have my distributor pulled. Quick way to do it. You can do it 2 ways. Get an oil pump priming tool, or do it the redneck way like I did with a screwdriver from Harbor Fraud that I hooked up into my drill and spun the living dog snot out of it till about 1200 RPM until I got oil pressure. Well, before I would not get any oil out of this boss. Now I've cleaned it out. I can spin it up right now, and it will actually start getting me a nice oil flow out of here, which actually feeds into the rocker shaft assembly. So that's one thing you want to do later on down the road, or if you're having an issue, you think you're hearing some upper end noise, and everything else is looking good. Mind you, I do have good compression on this engine, so it's actually in halfway decent shape, despite the fact that it looks like snot. You're gonna, like I said before, you're gonna notice also my carburetor's gone. I've got a rag shoved down in the hole right now. That's because the Holley 1931 should be in next week, hopefully. Rocker shaft should be back tomorrow. Like I said, it's at the machine shop. And that's about it. Like I said, head bolts by the tap factory service manual are supposed to be at 80 to 85 foot-pounds, or pound-feet, excuse me. I haven't torqued this one down yet. I've just got it snugged back up just enough so I can make sure I had oil flow back through the passageway again. What I did is while I had it out, mind you, it's got fuzzies on it now. I had it sitting over here. What this was actually a plastic bristled pistol bore cleaning brush that I got, and I snipped the ring off the end of it. I soaked it down with some parts cleaner, put some parts cleaner in it, and then hooked it up on the drill and cleaned the threads out and cleaned that area out. And I got a lot of gunk out of there. While I had the bolt out, I took it apart. I took it in the tumbler. I actually cleaned the threads up, chased the threads, got all the grime off of it so it's nice fresh going back in, and chased the threads down with a thread tap just to make sure it was clean. Like I said, I can hook the drill up to it now, and it'll actually be a nice bit of oil coming out of the top, so that should fix that issue. Well, hopefully by next week my carburetor will be back in and I can do some tuning on it and fix some of the other issues I've had. Some of the other things I did today, I just got done doing it. I actually found, if some of you astute viewers would have noticed before, some of the lenses on my dash plate were missing, as well as not having a cigarette lighter. So what did I do? I went in and got I got some new lenses for it. I actually found the two lenses that had fallen out in the back of it, took the dashboard apart. One thing you might have to worry about when you take these dashboards apart is the old electrical contacts in the back of the printed circuit board are very fragile. I broke one, half hour with a soldering gun. It got it back working correctly. So you guys can actually see that I have lights again, or I have all my lenses back in place. If I can get the key in there. Cooperate with me, you. Alternator light has got a new lens in it. Mind there's a little dampness in there because I cleaned it out while I was in there. That'll actually just evaporate off. Oil pressure light has a new lens in it. Turn signal light has a new lens in it on both sides. Now, one thing I'm really happy about, these were missing before. Notice, high beam actually has lights on it now. The brake light over here, which I actually tested that out a minute ago and it actually works, has lights as well as a light. And how can you test that? Well, if you really want to get bored and test that out real fast. Oh, why's my... Oh, switch was still on. If you want to test out to see if your brake light warning switch, because this system was actually pretty ingenious. It was a little ahead of its time, I think, because I haven't seen any vehicles back then that had this on it. It had a brake pressure differential switch. So if you actually lost one of your brake lines, it would brake pressure to one of your sides, it would let you know and kick a brake warning light on. Well, it's a ground operated switch similar to an oil pressure warning light. So it means if it's not getting ground, or if it's not getting pressure, it'll actually close. Switch will go to ground, kicks your light on. Well, the switch is down on your passenger side of your firewall. It is right here. It's a standard single contact switch. It kind of looks like an oil pressure sending unit. It's right there. Well, what I did to test it, see if the light was working, hooked a ground or a set of test leads up to this, put it on a good ground point in my car, flipped my ignition on, and wham bam, Bob's your uncle. My light came on, nice and pretty. So that tells me the light works. Doesn't tell me the switch works, but I pray to God the switch works. Brakes work, so we should be all right. Other than that, that's about it until parts come back in. Oh yeah, one last thing. Thank you, Galvins. They got me an original AMC washer bag. Goes next to my nasty, disgusting EverStart battery. Sue me. And with the original clips. Those are brand new clips on there too. I got to finish getting new vacuum lines. I tested the check valve last night. The check valve up here, because it is a foot operated pump. The check valve works good, but the pump itself is dead. I've got to order a new pump, and it looks like if you get a 70s Ford, they're the exact same pump. Anyways, YouTube, that's it for today. Have a great day, and I'll see you with the next update.